Hello and welcome to Audio Gyan, an Indian podcast for those interested in design, philosophy, and arts. Audio Gyan documents thoughts, ideas, and insights from known and unknown gems of India who have done some remarkable work in their field of interest. Visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Today I have Sunit Singh with us. Finally, I have managed to pin him down. He's a very old friend and a product designer, one of the influential product designers in India.
Shut up, dude.
Welcome to the show and thanks for giving us your time.
Thanks, Kedar. Thanks for finally having me. I'm super privileged considering all the amazing people that you've had on Audio Gyan.
Thank you. It's been a great journey so far. Sunit, with all these years we have worked together, I've been fortunate to learn a lot of tricks of the trade. And I was really keen to have you on Audio Gyan so that you can share some of those insights with our listeners today.
Sure, man. Shoot.
Yeah. So, Sunit, one would clearly agree that it's a great opportunity for any designer to work for a brand like Cleartrip, especially whose mission is to make travel simple. And since Cleartrip was one of your most significant stints, we would like to hear your version of what it means to make travel simple, or make anything simple for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at simplicity in the context of products that we use, whether it's digital or physical, right? If I had to basically define what is really simple to use, I would, kind of start with saying that when someone is actually trying to use a product, that person, that user is, has an end goal in mind, right? The whole idea is to get something done.
Achieve a goal.
Exactly. When you're about to get something done and you're using a tool or a product, you expect it to behave in a certain way. And that expectation comes from whatever you're already familiar with. I think a designer's job to actually reach simplicity is to really understand what your user is already habitual to, is really about anticipating what would come naturally to a user, while using the product, right? In design, we like to use the phrase, let's build in as many affordances as possible. And I would define affordances as signals or indications that represent how something will behave.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, right?
Yeah.
What do you do when you see a door handle? You would naturally tend to pull it. Yeah. And what would you do when you don't see a handle?
Push.
You would naturally push it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kind of affordances I'm talking about, right? Build in affordances so that users will like naturally behave in the way you want them to behave, right? And that's probably one of the reasons why I like to stick to basics and not reinvent the wheel when I'm designing anything.
But that doesn't kill creativity.
Well, my take on that is don't be creative for the sake of being creative. I mean, I think creativity should be objective and should have a purpose. For example, if you're trying to change, say, the visual design of any application, if you do that with a purpose, it becomes much more meaningful. The objective could be that I want the app to feel more warm, modern, or premium, or maybe create a perception of being lightweight. Whatever the case might be, I think, at the end of the day, you should be able to question your decision, and end it with, have we able to achieve what we had set out to do? Also a lot of designers want to do things differently for the sake of being different. And this could actually hurt your users. One must not forget that we are all creatures of habit. I'll take an example here. All my life, I'm used to having the light as a first light switch, as the first switch on the switchboard. And intuitively, when you enter a dark room, you reach out for something on the wall, and the first thing that's accessible, you click it, and that's how the lights come on. The house I was living in before this, the light switches were like the light was not the first one. It was the second one and the first one, the fan, right? And it disoriented me so much that I would turn on everything else except for the light. I just couldn't never ever get the light switches right. You blame yourself for being stupid. Yeah. And it's like your wife's favorite topic during any dinner. So Sunit can never get switches right.
No, but you can anytime get a electrician to fix it, that right?
Well, I mean, that's the lazy me. So, like, I'm not really bothered to do that. But, anyways, I think the point I'm trying to make is that the quality of the switches and the finishes have gotten really, really better. But at the end of the day, if they're not placed right, all that effort is a big waste. Yeah, to actually summarize it, I would say that you keep your products simple and stupid. Like, don't make your users feel stupid.
Sure, sure. So Sunit, since we are talking about simplicity, today I would like to hear from you the secret formula which we have in our design team, and everybody is like really they get the vibe exactly when we utter these secret words, which is lunch and dinner. So can you explain more about what is lunch and dinner? How did this phrase come about, and how does that fit in the simplicity context?
Acha, okay. So I was not expecting this, but anyways, lunch and dinner is a code word that we use when we want to tell any designers to make something very like as obvious as possible.
Okay.
And I'll tell you where this originated. Right, there was a fancy cafe that opened up near our office. And it had a fancy name. I don't remember. It was Cafe blah blah blah, whatever. It had a really nice looking board. It was a really nice looking place, and we used to go there and enjoy lunch sometimes. And after about a week or so, there was this ugly board that came up, and it said below the signboard, there was a bigger board that in a very ugly font which said lunch and dinner available. There were a lot of people who didn't realize that this place was also serving
maybe because of the cafe word.
Yeah, because of the name and maybe the look and feel of the place. People were not entering it for lunch and dinner. They were probably only like going there for a coffee or just like snacks or dessert or something like that. So now when you apply that, so what happens sometimes is in digital design, when you design something and things don't work or things are not obvious, you got to patch it up in the same way. You got to draw attention to something in the same way to say, call out something saying, okay, I'm here, just
Here's
to
a
make,
deal.
here's a deal or whatever. I mean, can't find an example, but the whole code lunch and dinner came about when I wanted to tell a designer that, design it in such a way that you don't have to patch it later, So we'd always say, okay, please, lunch and dinner, So it was a reminder to say that, it's better to design for making something obvious so that it's gracefully done in the beginning rather than make it very subtle in the beginning and then it fails in terms of when it goes out in production and it doesn't perform really well. And then you got to patch it up so that it delivers the number that we had actually promised.
Now that makes complete sense, and it's a great analogy. So Sunit, I'm guessing being observant is one of the traits. Similarly, can you share like one or two traits which makes a good designer?
Sure. So I think to me the most important trait a designer must have is a designer should just have very very low tolerance to BS, I would say. I think the way I see it is bad design creeps up into our lives when we become complacent, right? We just kind of accept things for how they are and really don't question it. So I think any good designer should not tolerate that, right? Has to constantly be questioning why things are the way they are and why are people doing things the way they do it. So I would say, like, yeah, just low tolerance, just like feeling the pain like day in, day out, like about how things function in the world would be like I would say, most important trait. And it has to happen like that. That feeling has to be not only when you're on your desk building a product, but like, in everything. In the way your clothes are organized, or the way your kitchen is organized, or whatever. Like, you have to optimize everything, and you have to constantly think about how you can make your life better and shave off every millisecond, reduce your own effort if you can, with just thinking through certain flows, right, in your life.
Yeah. Can you give an example? We used to discuss this about the elevator, about the cupboard thing.
Yeah, I mean, see, like, obviously, in small ways, you do things like, your drawers are organized in the way that you put your most frequently used things up front. Like, if you look at the kitchen, sometimes what happens is, many times you'll end up having so many things in a kitchen drawer, and when you really need something, you can't find it. And that's just noise, right? So you need to figure out how to cut down the noise and just keep the things that you use on a more regular basis. Like, you make sure the more frequently used things are easily accessible, and the less frequent things could be in another drawer, which, okay, you can put in an effort once in a week, but because of all of these things, you don't want to like use your brain power for no reason every day. Yeah, that's just one example. There are plenty of examples in how you could just optimize your own life by just questioning certain things. Like, why am I bending to do this, or why am I stretching to do this? Like, just there are better ways of like just living a life as well.
So Sunit, obviously your answers have given our listeners, must have given our listeners a much wider context of design and simplicity. So I would like to conclude with a very specific question, that how does one become a designer? What does it take to become a designer?
Sure. So, I've been fortunate enough to work with, designers that have come from different walks of life and backgrounds. So, there are obviously multiple avenues that you can pick. One of which is, you early in your career, you can basically, get into art school, and which I did myself, right? I did 5 years of fine arts, and then went on to doing a 2-year post graduation in visual communication from IIT Bombay. So yeah, now obviously the things are, they're more accessible. There are a lot of more design schools today. So you could either go to design school for, in your undergraduate, or you could do a postgraduate after any stream, right? You could be doing engineering, and then you have an option to take up a postgraduate in design, either from NID or IIT Bombay. IITs now have a undergrad courses as well. Or if, like, even if you've completed your engineering, and you don't feel like doing another postgrad, I don't think you need to be formally trained. I think I've worked with more self-learned designers than formally trained designers. And I think a good designer basically comes with a tinkering mindset. You need to be building stuff earlier on, right? As long as you have that mindset of tinkering, playing with stuff, creating, building, those are all sort of makings of a designer. Cool. I think this is a good note to end this.
Thank you, Sunit, for being on the show. It was like a lot of fun talking to you, and I hope to have you again on Audio Gyan.
Thanks, Kedar. It was rocking fun.
So that's it from today's Gyan session. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audio Gyan next week. Till then, bye.